Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I know people will continue to join in. Welcome to the March 3rd ARH Monthly Partner Call. Again, my name's Kim Travis. I'm the Engagement Coordinator for the Affordable Rental Housing Division here at Oregon Housing and Community Services. And we will take a moment here to just be grounded in the process agreements that we use. Please help foster an inclusive environment, stay engaged, speak your truth responsibly, listen to understand, be willing to do things differently and experience discomfort, expect and accept non-closure. So we appreciate you joining us in utilizing these process agreements. Okay, so today's topics, typically this meeting is an opportunity to preview the items that will be at the upcoming Housing Stability Council meeting. So we'll do that, and then we will also provide an update on the QAP and ORCA with LIHTC. We'll provide an overview of the portfolio financial analysis study, and then we will just do a reminder about some recent technical advisories and upcoming technical advisories so that you can help we can help you track a lot of the activities that are going on. So we'll just reference those, and then we'll have time for a legislative update near the end of this meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Natasha.
Thanks, Kim. And hello, everybody. Happy March. There's something that happens March, in like a lion, out like a lamb. Is that March, or is it the Ides of March? In any case, happy March, all. Happy to be with you here on this Monday afternoon. I am jumping into this. I guess first I just will mention we have a pretty short Housing Stability Council agenda this month with a couple transactions being recommended out of the ORCA, which is lovely and reflects also that there's still a lot of work happening to get the ORCA and tax credits open, which is happening, which I'll talk about in a second. And then also, of course, in legislative efforts and all of the work and advocacy around our programs and housing production broadly. I did also just want to regroup around the changes at the federal level and understand the uncertainty that is created when there is change happening. And at this point, we do not see that there are any impacts to established OHCS programs. And we are actively assessing federal actions for impact that they may have. But we are remaining committed to serving Oregonians across the housing continuum, and including the full breadth of our work here at OHCS and for Affordable Rental Housing Division, the financing, building, and preservation of affordable housing, and supports for permanent supportive housing. So we are continuing to move our work forward, and are actively engaged in all of these areas, but don't have any broader wisdom beyond that for impacts aside from what we are seeing today. And so just appreciation and commitment to you all to continue to share as we learn, and know that ensuring that we are responsive and pivoting and forecasting is all part of the work that we all do on the daily basis, and we are going to continue to do that in these cases as well. So let's see, then I think the next slide, which Kim you had up around the ORCA and the QAP, really excited. Last week, we published the finalized qualified allocation plan that has been adopted by Governor Kotek. This morning, the work centers for the projects that had been in our intake and ready to seek resources for the 4% tax credit program were open. So there are folks surely furiously working through applications as I speak. If you have questions, you can, I guess we can maybe put a link in the chat to the link in the presentation, Kim. And I can as well when I stop talking, but, I've certainly reach out to the application team. They are there and full of a ton of knowledge and ability to respond and provide the right guidance and referrals that you might need. We do have resources available to be able to pair with Lyft. And so I wanted to share that updated calendar, which maybe I can just add it here. So I just put a PDF in the chat. And that PDF has the resource, both the current gap only wait list, and then on the second page, I think it's the same version I was looking at earlier. Yeah, so the first page is the wait list. The second page is the resources that we have available. And maybe I'm just going to quick share my screen if that's okay. Because if we're looking at resources that we have available to be able to leverage the private activity bonds, we do have at least $230 million in private activity bonds that could be made available to fund affordable rental housing if there are projects to use that. And just for level setting, the private activity bonds is the resource that generates the 4% tax credit. And so the project needs to have at least 50% of the project financed with private activity bonds, and then it generates the 4% tax credit and equity from that. So we have the 230 million yet to be committed. And then we have added more fine tune on the resources side. So we have now we have 106 million across for Lyft, just general development funding. And that is broken out by regions and the set-asides. We have $6.8 million in preservation dedicated resources to be paired with 4% resources. And then we also have significant resources for PSH dedicated to PSH Institute projects, and then other PSH resources for PSH projects that are that are not directly tied to the focus of the institutes. We have resources for development by Native nations. We have veterans GHAP resources. So those are all resources that could be paired with 4%. So if we're thinking around the process for moving our work forward, again, this funding table gives that roadmap. We are intending to update this on a monthly basis. So this is updated for now. And so we will do another update after the April Housing Stability Council meeting based on those transactions, if whatever is funded through this. And so as we look at, as we look at what we have opened today for the 4%, we have projects that as everyone is likely again putting their applications in right now, because we do have the time-sensitive 2025 private activity bonds that could be secured to be able to close this year. The first projects that we will be making commitments to will be aligned to that 2025 private activity bonds using the available gap resources. And so we'll use our ORCA process to move those through. And then, once we are able to either fully subscribe all of the gap resources or the private activity bonds, we will go back toward to continue to look forward into 2026. We have, as for those of you in tracking the private activity bond allocations and structure, we did incorporate into our qualified allocation plan collaboration with the housing authorities of Oregon. So we have, and they have done their work to forecast their needs for 2026 and provided that to us. So we will be continuing to work in close contact with the housing authorities to make sure that we are all moving together and planful about all of the resources that we will need and that we can use to make sure that we are deploying them as quickly as possible. And then also in the advisory last week, we referenced the 9% tax credit. That is the side of that federal tax credit resources that requires a selection process for it. And so that will use a 9% request form. We had given our heads up that that form will be published on March 13th. It will remain open for 6 weeks. It is not a full comprehensive, what would have been an ANOFA, but it is a lighter touch look at that to be able to allow projects to move forward. And then, and yes, if you didn't get a 4% work center, I see Shelley, your question, I think reach out directly to the application team to be able to get some follow-up on that. And I don't know, Kim, or if there's someone from the application team, if that's going through the portal, or if that should go to an email address. They may know what the preference would be.
Let's have someone from the app team put the app email, please, in the chat. That'd be great.
Okay, great. So I think we will get the email address in there. Let's see, yes, and there is a training webinar scheduled for the 6th, where I think there will be a deeper dive on lots of questions and answers around that application process as well. And I think the webinar link is probably in the advisory. Oh, and Kim put it in there as well. So trying to think if there's any other. I think Sean, I see your question on the mandatory and supplemental criteria if they are pass fail. They are pass fail. It is not a scored evaluation, it is a pass fail evaluation. I think I can safely say that without messing up my team here. Great. And yes, and so if anybody thinks they should have had a work center, please do reach out.
And we look forward to seeing folks at the training. We've already had about 150 people register, so it will be a large group, and we're excited to see you all there. Okay. Should we move along?
Sure. So next, I think we're just gonna share, we've been on a long road of implementation of data systems and just a ton of appreciation for all of you participating in the pro quorum of it all, and all of the team digging into the ProLink side, which is our internal system, and the application team, but the system team, the ProLink team, who has been really expanding our ability to be able to leverage the system, to be able to get both get the right information in and the right information out. So we are using that, all of that information to be able to do an analysis, financial analysis of our portfolio. I think acutely understanding and aware that there are significant challenges across our portfolio, from certainly physical condition, but also financial performance. I think there's I think a plethora of issues we probably talked about in lots of different circumstances, but all of which have really changed our foundation of what we need to understand as we are looking at what funds are needed for operating and what real operational costs are. And so the team is digging in on that. we will be putting together that analysis, be consulting and getting feedback and thoughts and strategies around that with you all, and aim to have that report kind of finalized to be able to share in June. So at the end of our biennial forecast to move into the new legislative funds and new biennia with that information and understanding. Yeah, just appreciate in advance all of your work around that. I know we have talked with a lot of folks around what the best strategies are for doing that examination, and so we'll continue to have those conversations, and certainly interested in any thoughts or feedback as we are able to provide back to you all some information around that financial portfolio health. And I think that was all I had planned to cover on that. Cam, I don't know if there's any other questions that we should be taking on, or maybe I
Yeah,
have to hand it
happy to
back.
take questions. Please use the chat if you have some questions or raise your hand. We'll keep plugging along here. I did want to um, make sure that folks are aware of a few different technical advisories that have recently been sent out, and including the extension for the Supportive Housing Institute request for applications extended to March 14th. That technical advisory went out last week. We, had been gearing up for the Orca launch, so we had communicated about 4% work centers. There was also a technical advisory last month, way back in February, about the temporary closure of the land acquisition program. And then last month, we also launched the Moderate Income Housing Revolving Loan Program. And then upcoming technical advisories, just keep an eye out for a technical advisory about the rent increase policy. And then we will be sending out a technical advisory on March 13th when we publish the 9% LIHTC request form. So just wanted to offer a little bit of a space here to remind folks about the different communications that we've had recently, because I know it's a lot to track. And yeah, any questions, feel free to jump in. And I think I saw some chats. So
Yeah, I see a chat from Dan around the uh, prioritizing acquisitions within our resources. And I think there are some, various legislative concepts that we have had some conversations around, seeking to have dedicated resources specific to acquisition funding. At this point, it is part of our overall resource availability, and so it is alongside the new construction. And I think generally what I would recommend is that bridge financing be used to be able to respond in the rapid fire of the market condition until we have a dedicated resource to be able to support that upfront acquisition. Our lift program, we have opened that to being eligible to acquire like new market rate housing, and uh, and I think, yeah, and functionally those, when it is an occupied building, those resources are released as the units turn over to be able to have affordability within it in alignment with the resource. So I think those are strategies I would certainly recommend talking with the technical advisor team to kind of get a good insight around those, where you prioritize the application. I think when you're on the wait list for funds, in as much as possible, when we have resources to support the investment, then we would be putting it toward it. And so we will see if we end up with, what the legislative investment and resources is, and if there is our intentions and direction towards supporting that market acquisition, or if that is work that we want to take on after we get legislative investment. So we need to kind of see a little bit more about that.
and Travis is asking about any details about the upcoming rent increase policy.
Um, I mean, I think we are, I don't know, Travis, if there's specific questions that you have. I think I have seen some internal recommendations around updates and refinements to the rent increase policies, but have not moved forward with any changes. I think the place where, we are not intending to change the categories of evaluation or any of those fundamental components around it, but I know that there were some process refinements to help build general clarity, and so I think that's kind of um, the question we are asking and answering here in the near term, but again, not expecting anything fundamentally different. So I don't know if there's a specific uh, something that you've heard that you would like me to speak to,
Well, I
or
just I just saw it
yeah.
on your upcoming technical advisories, and so
Oh,
I was curious to get a sense of what that meant.
yes. Yeah, no game changer. It is no game changer. It'll uh yeah, marketing our portals and categories and some more streamlining is what we anticipate if nothing else. But yeah, nothing fundamentally different.
And then Kathleen has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you. Oh, sorry, you're looking at outside instead at me. I'm gonna go off video again. That's the blurred tree outside of my house. I have a question about just because I'm new to following the how the biennium budget will fold into this process come June, July in terms of like things that I'm thinking are in mind are if you already have an application in, do you stay on a wait list that would then get prioritized for future funds if they become available? Or whatever the budget comes out, do we like do a restart in July or just kind of how does the existing resources dovetail with this new budget cycle?
Yeah, that is a great question, Kathleen, and I don't think one that is everybody else has practiced at because we didn't used to have the Orca in place, and so part of what I guess I'm hoping we can get from having the Orca in place and having a managed pipeline, which is the wait list, is less, more continuity and less start, restop, restart, start, stop efforts. And so I think as we get legislative investment, again, yet to be seen what direction is going to come with that legislative investment and if there will be requirements that we break it off into pieces that will require us to stand up kind of what is the framework for analysis or prioritization underneath anything, but functionally where we have resources that would be able to support the projects currently on a wait list, we would go and fund those that next tranche of projects that we are able to fund. Um, and so I think, so we're practicing again that for the first time, but I do expect that we are probably some of each. Some resources will be dedicated to something we may or may not have existing in our pipeline or in our policies or and stuff like that, where we will need to do a little bit of that policy work to kind of implement the new funds, but that the Orca serves as the one door for all things to come through, and then it is routed to the right way. And so in as much as the legislature provides us resources that could be paired with 4% or done invested as gap only, we would be prioritizing making sure that we are moving those commitments forward to be able to get the housing built in community.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think that's a good segue to Tanisha, if Tanisha is here. Next, we're going to provide legislative updates. So go ahead, Tanisha.
Hi, y'all. My name is Tanisha Rosas. I do government relations for the Affordable Rental Housing Division. This session is well on its way. We are nearing some big deadlines, but that also means there's a lot of movement right now on every legislative concept. So this is kind of the busiest time for number of ideas and the least amount of clarity we have throughout the entirety of session. So no, moving forward, there will be more clarity. So right now we are sitting prior to the first big deadlines of making sure that scheduling a public hearing for a legislative concept and a bill. And prior to that, the bill has to be voted on in committee by April. So March 21st is our first big deadline. What that means is every bill must be scheduled for a public hearing. And so this session, there is a historic number of bills that have been filed, and we are still seeing language drop for lots of bills that have been filed. There have been placeholder bills. And so the team at OHS is heavily involved in asking or answering logistical questions on a lot of big policy items. So there's lots of bills that will create new kinds of funding for different types of development. We'll create set aside fundings for our current pipelines that we have. There's some different initiatives that a lot of groups are moving in. And so there's just a lot of moving pieces. And so you'll hear lots of different direct allocation bills. It's just kind of all over the map. It's moving, but we're in a good spot. And very shortly, we should be able to know exactly when. But our budget bill, Kathleen, that you were just mentioning, the first sign of our budget is we're going to go before a legislative committee, a subcommittee of Ways and Means, and essentially advocate for our budget. So Director Bell and Deputy Director Yant, they will go and sit before the committee and spend 4 days getting very detailed in our budget asks. So if you are curious about what something that you've heard we're asking for is, that is the best place to go and listen to the hearing to hear what we're saying it is, what our goals are. But then also if you are interested in advocating for that, there will be a day or sharing your opinions about what part of the budget is the most important to you. There is a day, the last day of the hearings for our budget bill will be a day that you can testify for that bill. So that's going to be middle of March. We don't have official dates, but look at the week of the 17th or the week of the 24th. Just keep eyes on those weeks in legislative world and specifically in the Transportation and Economic Development Committee. And then that's going to be the things that most likely will move on our budget. We don't know the dollar amounts, but those are the things that the governor has agreed to and she's supporting. And so those are the things most likely going to move, but they are not everything. There's a lot of other pieces moving, and I'll keep giving updates throughout the entirety of session and happy to answer any questions, but there's a lot moving. It is a newer, more fun type of session than I've ever had because of all the creativity. And I know many of our partners, many people on this call are some of those creative solutions that I've seen out there. So it's an exciting time to see this policy. And we, again, are a priority for the governor. And so it's just exciting. So happy to answer any questions. I wish I could give you more concrete things, but until those first deadlines start approaching, everything's on the table and there's a lot of good concepts out there.
Thanks, Tanisha. Any questions for Tanisha or for Natasha or others before we close out? Kathleen.
Hi, I got another question. Sorry.
No
Newbie
problem.
here. I think I fixed my camera too, so I exist in the world. The other thing I was thinking about, the market is changing so rapidly right now, in terms of costs and craziness from the feds. How often are the gap only and the gap plus LIHTC subsidy limits updated?
I'm trying to think. So, because we're doing it different, at this point, we have adopted them for the resources that we have. I presume we will do another update to them coming out of, so it's either going to have to be a mid-year update or an end-of-year update. So ideally once a year at max to be able to have to update the subsidy limits. I also think we will be seeing it more in our deals as we are moving projects through and if they really become broken and infeasible. But I think, yeah, aspiring towards an annual update process.
Thank you.
Travis?
Asking a question I'm not sure I really want the answer to, but Kathleen made me think of it. I'm wondering how OHCS is looking at or recommending sponsors look at potential, probably mostly supply escalation, whether that's tariffs or other supply chain issues or cost issues. I know there have been some consideration over the last few years of making sure that we are carrying appropriate contingencies there and talking about them, but I think there's probably some potential factors that could be at play
Yeah.
now or in the coming months that are really just impossible for us to predict. And I'm wondering how you might look at that or want us to show those.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is exactly that, and it's impossible to predict. And I think would, I guess, encourage contingencies that may be helpful to doing. And so I think, and I think we have also experienced this in the 2016 to 2020 period as we had corporate tax reform and a significant decline in tax credit pricing, which has continued to decline since then, alongside supply chain and cost issues and all of those impacts and delay. And I think leverage your expertise to be able to do as best you can as you're building your development budgets. And, I think we will do what we also did in that point of, identifying the issue and what the different movable pieces are. And it just feels like right now we are stuck in a place that's kind of a dull before what is coming next. As we start seeing these really hit projects. And I think it just is it's a bit unknown at this point, but I think trying to plan for with contingencies in place would be what I would say. I do, and I think part of the process that really is ORCA came out of that experience where we were previously in the NOFA locking hard the numbers at that Housing Stability Council recommendation with that very early, mocked up development budget, and in a stagnant market that had worked, and in the, with the volatility in the market and in all of kind of the implications of different federal policies. I guess we're also optimistic that our ability in the ORCA, we get our upfront approvals, and then we're not finalizing concretely the dollars to projects until, right before when it goes to the firm commitment stage, somewhere around 6 months ahead of construction. And so you have hopefully more real information at that point in time to be able to do it. So I'm hoping that that structure allows us to have a little bit more resiliency and ability to find the solutions. And we will all need to be working within our means to do so. And we will not have solutions for everything. So I think planning is as much as we can, but I am hopeful that that ORCA process tries to move in there. And I think Kathleen for the contingency maximums, I don't know, somebody here from the production team to want to speak to how you would like to treat contingencies at this point. And if not, maybe we'll take it as a follow-up to be able to share more around that.
That would be great if there could be maybe a waiver process or something that is around that. I know also with the in my experience with doing lots of rehabs, they can get really complicated really quickly, and that my rule of thumb was always 15 to 20% for a rehab for contingency, especially if it's an extra older building. So I definitely encourage y'all to think about that policy, and if there are waivers, I guess, for lack of a better way to ask.
For sure. Yes. I mean, I do think, yeah, where your logic is telling you how to design your financial budget, I think that is, especially as contingencies and others are factored in, you want to be able to do so. And yeah, seeing Robin's question.
Looks like
I
that
think-
is a question for the application team, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, so hopefully someone from the app team can respond to Robin or take that question offline. Okay. Oh, hi, Elizabeth. Oh, I can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Great, great. Okay, so Robin, you're more than welcome to reach out directly to the apps team. Let us know which documents you needed put in a different spot, and we can move those over for you. Or if you just go ahead and change the name of that document to delete me and then send me a message, I can go in and delete those for you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay.
Kim, you've muted
I
yourself.
know, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. I was just gonna say, anything else before we close out today? We didn't have anything else on our agenda. Let's think we covered everything. So give it another minute and see. Got something in the chat. Okay, you're welcome. All right. Well, Natasha, any closing words before we adjourn?
Trying to think of something wise. I don't know that I feel very wise. So thank you all for all of the work that you do. I think